For those of you who don't know me, I've been around the Salesforce ecosystem now for about 9 years. I started off working at a partner in 2007, and at that time I was helping people do implementations of Force.com at a very different level than what Force.com is capable of today. And from there I went on and started doing integrations and that kind of thing. So who in here today is here with a partner? Okay, a few people are with partners, cool. Who here is implementing themselves? Anybody do a self-implementation? A couple people have? Okay, awesome. So I did that for about 3 years, and then I started working for Salesforce. At Salesforce, I started off life doing Labs apps on the App Exchange. So has anybody ever loved a Labs app? A couple people. Anybody ever hated a Labs app? Okay, you're welcome, and I'm sorry. It was a pretty good gig, and so I did that for a little while. And then last year, I decided that I wanted to kind of mix things up a little bit. And so I went over to a little thing called the Marketing Cloud, which honestly I knew very little about when I went over to it. And so today, I thought what I would do is talk a little bit about what I've learned in those 10 months, give you a demo of the product that I'm working on so that people can actually see it in action, and hopefully talk about some other cool stuff that we're doing. Is anybody in here today using the Marketing Cloud? Wes is. Anybody else? No, so this is brand new for a lot of people. Great. So with that, let's go ahead and share the forward-looking statements. I'm a product manager now, so I actually do make forward-looking statements from time to time, so do me a favor and don't buy our product based on those. Buy our product based on the stuff that is existing today. If you'd like to read that more, you can go to our investor information section. The interesting thing about the Marketing Cloud that I did not appreciate when I first started working with it is how well it is being received and why it is being received that well. About 18 months ago, there was a great graphic that came out that was all the logos of all the emerging marketing technology companies. Anybody remember what this was? It had about 1,200 logos on it. They were all super tiny because there's so much happening in this space. And what I found from talking to customers is that is a disaster for the modern marketing department. And it's a disaster because all of those little capabilities are great, but it's extremely difficult to get them working together. So when people come over to the Marketing Cloud, a lot of times what they're trying to do is they're trying to use a platform, something which is already integrated end-to-end. And that is what the Marketing Cloud is designed to be giving people. And so we deal with a lot of different channels, all the channels that people really want. So email, mobile, social ads, and web. And we do it in a very interesting way. So everybody's heard of Journey Builder at some point in time? Okay, cool. So Journey Builder is a great way to build these one-to-one customer journeys, and it really forms the backbone of how people are starting to think about the next generation of marketing. Now, I don't work on all of these things. I work in this little area right over here, mobile, and in mobile, we actually have 3 different products, and I work on something called Mobile Push. The thing that is also fun, I wanted to make sure to show this slide, because I'm sure you've seen this for Sales Cloud and Service Cloud, the kind of results that people are seeing when they implement the product. It extends over to the Marketing Cloud too. You know, we have a lot of people who are getting great results, and this is kind of the number, which I think is most important, is that people are seeing a 43% increase in overall ROI by using the platform. Okay, so those are the 2 slides that my marketing department put together. All the other stuff is mine, and you're going to be able to tell the difference pretty easily. I've got 5 things I'm going to talk about. I'm going to start off talking about Mobile Push. So Mobile Push is my product. Does everybody know what Mobile Push is? It's where you get those push notifications. Maybe somebody follows you on Twitter, or maybe Facebook has a new message that comes to you, or maybe an email pops up. Those are push notifications, and they're a great way to interact with somebody who has an app on a mobile device. And so what I do is I work on this product called Mobile Push, and my product delivers 5 critical capabilities, and these are listed up here. So push notifications is one of them. Location-based marketing, so if you cross over an imaginary boundary called a geofence, we can attach a message and some behavior to that. Also beacons, if you come near a beacon, we can attach some messaging to that so that you can interact with it. Mobile analytics, don't get me wrong on mobile analytics, we're not Google Analytics where we're doing kind of that level, but we are doing messaging-related analytics so that you can kind of see what happens when you send a message and how much time people are then spending in your app. Rich Push, which is how you get a nicely formatted HTML page out to your user base, so that instead of just seeing some plain text, you can get some branding, you can get some imagery. And then App Inbox. One of the challenges around push notifications is that they're transient. It's very easy to make them go away, but a lot of times they contain important information that a customer wants to keep. And so an app inbox is a way for you to actually store that information on a customer's device and tie it into messaging so that your marketing department is happy. Now, all of these five capabilities these five capabilities, they all have these kind of three characteristics. The first one is B2C scale. I spent most of my career working in B2B, and the way that I like to think about the difference is that when you're thinking about kind of a bunch of zeros separated by commas, you've got your hundreds, your thousands, and your millions, right? B2B a lot of times is in the thousands space. B2C is always in the millions. It's always in the millions, and so it's a different level of scale, and if you've built systems, you know that scale breaks everything, right? So you have to engineer in a different way. And so that is one of the things that is really interesting about the way the Marketing Cloud works. The other thing that my product provides is offline capabilities, so that if you are gathering analytics and somebody's interacting with your device, but they're in airplane mode, well, as a marketer, you still want to track all that information. And so we cache all of that and then send it up to the Marketing Cloud later on. And then this last one is Marketing Cloud integration. So the thing that I started off saying that our customers want an integrated platform as compared to a point solution, that is what drives the Marketing Cloud integration. So today, in my product, you can do very straightforward things like, send push notifications, these five capabilities. Tomorrow, what's coming up is more robust Journey Builder integration, more robust integration with some other features that I'm going to talk about in a second. So that's kind of the core of the product. There's three core use cases that customers use my product for, and you can actually think about these as really three messaging strategies that are very commonly used in the industry. Broadcast, targeted, and transactional. So broadcast messages are when you take this entire audience and you send the same message. That is the old way of doing messaging, and honestly, a lot of people still do it because it's surprisingly effective. You can send out a message to a lot of people, drive a lot of activity. It's not perfect, but it's easy, and people know how to do it. So broadcast is a very common use case. Targeted is a second type of use case, and that's where you take just the people sitting in these front three rows, and you find something specific for them, and you send that message out just to this group. That is more where we're going in terms of messaging, because you want to get targeted that way. But ideally, from a messaging standpoint, you actually want to get not just to these three rows, you want to send it to Matt, right? That is like the number one thing that people think about when they think about really targeting. But then this third use case is also very interesting, and that's transactional messages. And so transactional messages are when you have an in-flight business process that you want to keep somebody informed of. So maybe you have a loan application, maybe you have an insurance claim, maybe you have something else going on that somebody's going to be interested in. And transactional messages keep them apprised of the progress. So when you think about kind of the general strategy that people are used to, that's old, that's now, this is like the highest engaging that people can do. The other thing that we talk about a lot of times on the Marketing Cloud, which is kind of different than where I used to be in just kind of developer evangelism and how to do things, is we talk about how do you earn trust. A lot of times you earn trust going right to left on this. You get people's trust that they're going to actually read your messages by sending them great transactional messages, because then they know that they want to read your message. And then you can send some targeted messages, which maybe aren't for an in-flight business process, but are a little bit more, about other things that you offer. And then if these two are good, then you can start doing some broadcast stuff if you want to. Okay. Thoughts on use cases? Anybody want to dive in further, or does that make sense? I think it makes sense. Okay. So let's talk about how mobile push really works. And I'm only going to be talking about push notifications right here. This is only that first item of the capability set. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to register with the push provider. So the phone talks directly to Apple or to Google and gets a system token. The phone then shares that with the Marketing Cloud. Okay, so when it comes over to the Marketing Cloud, then we can start to identify who that person is on the device. When we want to send a message, we have to send that message through the push notification provider. So in this case, it would go from the Marketing Cloud over to Apple. And then Apple is responsible for actually delivering that final push notification back to the end user's device. So that's basically how the whole technical system works. Now, from an implementation standpoint, when you're thinking about bringing this capability into your app, you really have to have three things. You have to have your app. So a lot of people come to us with an existing app. Some people are creating a brand new app. Either way is fine. You have to bring in our SDK. So I have an SDK that actually manages all of those 5 things. And I say I feel very proprietary over this product, even though it's clearly not mine, right? It's Salesforce. But you have to bring the SDK in, and then you have to create a technical configuration. And the technical configuration is what helps the Marketing Cloud understand what app is actually on that device and how we should communicate with it. So, okay. I think we've talked about a lot of stuff, so let's get out of here and do a demo so you can kind of see it in action. Well, that's not it. There it is. Okay. So this is the Marketing Cloud. So if you've never logged into the Marketing Cloud before, you're going to see some stuff which is familiar, you're going to see some stuff which is different, and we're going to see how good the Wi-Fi is. Wi-Fi has generally been pretty good, so that's good. When it first loads up, it brings you into a landing page which is designed to show you kind of your whole marketing program at a glance. And so if you're a marketer, this is actually very useful and actually very hard to get. So you can see that we have this calendar up at the top, we have a section called Pulse, and then we have a campaign down here. For calendar, you can see where I've got some messaging that's gone out, right? That's designed to help a marketer really understand what their activity looks like, and then you can also start to see things which are planned. But for right now, just think about what's kind of happened in the past. So on Wednesday, you can see I sent out an email. I sent out a whole bunch of push notifications because I was making sure everything was working. And then Thursday and Friday, just some basic stuff. Now, Pulse is interesting, too, because that actually ties into another area of the product. That ties into the social system. And so you can look at and see that I've got, for example, Twitter configured, and it gives me this day-by-day bar graph of who's following me and unfollowing me. Today, nobody's followed me. So there you go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hop in here, and I'm going to go to mobile, and I'm going to go to mobile push. And so in mobile push, this really gives you a channel-specific breakdown. So now I'm not really talking right now. I'm not going to show you at this point exactly how the full integrated part works. I'm just going to show you kind of what the channel-specific stuff is. And you'll see that it gives you a great overview of your app operation. It talks about how many people have opted into push notifications. Push notifications are really interesting because the end user has the ability to completely opt out at any time, and they can do it. It's at the device level. And then we also get some basic analytics, right, of what's happening. And so in the last month, I've opened 16 of the test messages that I've sent myself. These numbers are very small because this is my test account. But let's go ahead and create a message so you can see that in action. So the first thing that you do is you select a template. This process is very similar to other areas of the Marketing Cloud. So in my case, I can do an outbound message, I can do some location-based messages, or a beacon. Today, I'm just going to do an outbound message. I'm going to say, hello, London's calling. And a message is really 3 things. A message is a technical configuration. So you remember before I said you had to have an app, an SDK, and a technical configuration? So this app right here, this is my technical configuration. So I've got 2 of them in here that I tie to releases so I can keep track of which SDK I'm demoing. And we just had a new SDK released on Monday, actually. And so that's this 2016-01. So I'll select that. And then you'll see that there's a few different types of messages that I can send. I can do alerts. I can include a cloud page. I can just do a cloud page. That's the app inbox functionality I was talking about before. But for today, I'm just going to do this one. I'm going to say, hello, London. Why not try the scones? Okay. I'm sorry? I know, right? We should have some scones here. That's okay. So then you pick an audience, and I've got this audience. Now, if I wanted to, I could create a new audience. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Create List so that you can see what this is like. A big thing that we try and do is we try to put the marketer at the center of everything. And what a marketer is really concerned with is identifying and segmenting who they're going to be working with. So you know how I was talking about that targeted message? This is a way that you can do drag and drop segmentation. So if I come down in here and I start going into push demographics, I can actually do drag and drop segmentation based on all of the characteristics that we track. So these are all default things. So let's say I wanted to do it by created date. I can bring that over in here. And then let's say I wanted to do it by last name. I could bring that in here. And I can start to do stuff like saying, I only want messages for device records that were created today, and that the last name is set up as Carlberg. Make sense? So I've actually already got that list set up, so I'm going to cancel out of this. And then we'll come back over and we'll resume. Okay. So I'll go ahead and select, sorry, not that list, this list. I'll click on Next. It gives me the opportunity to go ahead and review. I'll click on Send. And I can click on this to send it immediately. So this comes up and it now says it's sent. So we're going to come over here and see if I can bring my devices up. And we'll see if Android gives me some love here. Now, in the background, what happens is we go through and we have to render each one of these messages individually. And then we have to send them over to the correct push provider. So in this case, I have an Android device and I have a iOS device. And so you can see that it comes through, and they both come through a little bit differently. So in this case, you have our MCLA up at the top for the demo that we just did, right? And so that's basically how it works. So that's the core functionality of this system. You can go ahead and you create a message, you can define your audience, and you can send it out, and it shows up on all the devices. Now, there's a bunch of other stuff that you can do in the product, but for right now, let's go back and talk a little bit more about some of this other stuff that I love. Going to pop up for me? It's not going to. Okay. There we go. So, next thing, data extensions and AMP script. So, has anybody in here ever created a custom object? Force.com platform, lots of people have. So you want to think about data extensions like a custom object. It allows you to bring in arbitrary data into the Marketing Cloud platform. So we have a lot of customers that what they'll do is they'll bring in transaction history, they'll bring in preference information, they'll bring in stuff about behavior, and then what they do is they use that information to drive segmentation, and then also, in a second, I'll show you how to do this, customization. Because remember, what we want is we want not that batch and blast that we were talking about where we're doing a broadcast message to the whole group. We want to personalize it, and then we want to make sure that it's targeted. And so data extensions are a key way to do that. Now, data extensions are powerful. First of all, you can bring them in and have them be standalone if you want to. But you can also come in and connect them into your contact model. So this contact model is different than what you're going to see as contacts in the core Salesforce CRM platform. But what happens is we have customers then who define this contact model themselves. And so you see we have kind of contacts at the center, and then there's mobile push over here, predictive intelligence, and then there's a couple things that I've made. But basically the idea is that you've got this subscriber key that is connecting all of this data so that you get that single view of the customer and you get all of their information right at your fingertips so that you can do work with it. So that's the first thing that I want to talk about is this data extensions. So the second thing that is part of this is AMP script. How many people in here are developers? A few people? A few people are? Okay. So if you've used something before, like a PHP or a little bit of JavaScript, a lot of this is going to feel pretty familiar. It's a scripting language that is useful for customization. The delimiters are a little different, and some of the syntax is a little bit different, but the basic model is something you're going to be very familiar with. So for example, if you want to put out the current date and time, it's % equals now. Right? So not that different. And then if you really wanted to, you could do things like we have here on the bottom where you can declare a variable and you can start to do different things with that data. So for example, you can do a simple format. Now, this by itself isn't all that exciting because, a date isn't exactly going to give you all that targeting and customization that you want. But it's really interesting when you start doing something like this. So let's take a second and kind of read this and see what this looks like and see if we can figure out what it does. So you can see where it says hello. We got the delimiters in there, first name. This is a field that we have some data in. Your last purchase was, and then what we're going to do is we're going to format a date from a lookup in a data extension, getting that field by subscriber key, which is tied to their email address. And then we're going to say and then we're going to pull in an amount, and then we're going to say open our app for huge savings today. So I actually look at these things. I was going to use the analogy of milk and cookies, but I don't know, tea and biscuits. I thought I would try that. Is tea and biscuits a real thing? Like, do people say that? Okay. So these two things really go together, right? You actually do want to use data extensions and AMP script together because that's how you're going to drive that type of segmentation and personalization that you really want. Most of the customers who I'm dealing with, they are having kind of a marketing technologist construct these things, these type of personalizations. And so, it feels like early days of S controls, and it feels like early days of some of the stuff that we used to do on the platform before it was as robust as it is today. So interesting stuff from my opinion. But let's go ahead and see what this actually looks like. Now, there's a possibility I did this correct, and there's a possibility I didn't, so we're going to find out. So we're going to go back in here, and we're going to send another outbound message. And we're going to say, huge savings, number 1. And so, again, we're going to come to this technical configuration, so the same one as before. We're going to do the alert exactly like we did, and then this is where I'm going to hit paste. Hey, look at that. It's still in there. Good. Okay. Now, a couple things actually happen here. You notice that my preview isn't working with this AMP script. As product owner for this drives me crazy. I will fix that. But today it doesn't work. So you have to do a little bit of testing to make sure that this is up and running. So we'll go ahead and click on Next. We'll select the same audience. We'll click on Next. And then we're going to go ahead and click on Send. Okay. So let's see if I can pop over to these devices again. We'll see which one of these is working. See if Android died again. There we go. Android did die again. That's amazing. I didn't actually use Android to present from that much until I started working with this product, so a little bit newer for me. So, again, this is going out in the background, and it's doing a few things to render these individual messages. Now, when it renders these messages, it actually has to do those database lookups, so it takes a second, right? Thank you, Peter. And then here you go. You'll see that these are coming up, right? So we have, hello, Jody. Your last purchase date was January 22nd. For the amount was $576, and over here we have Simon, and the amount was $275. And part of the reason that those are coming up as the names that they are is let's go ahead and open this one, and you'll see that I've got Jody Wagner on this app, and then if you come over here, you'll see that I've got Simon Goodyear on this app. Now, these are actual learning apps that we help developers get to know our system with. So this is a quick and easy way to kind of get up and running in it. And if you look at this, you'll see over here where I've got this one set up as first name Jody, last name Wagner. So that's where it's getting the personalization from. Everybody remembers % first name. And then you'll see that there's a subscriber key that actually connects that data. So do me a favor, remember that subscriber key for a second. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you exactly how that comes together. So we'll go over here into data and analytics. Now, I said before that there's a lot of stuff that's up here, and we're only going to be showing a couple of different things. Data and analytics is where we can get into this contact builder where you can start to see your data model. So if we come over into the data model, got to remember which device I'm clicking on here. You're going to start to see the screenshot that I showed just a second ago. And that is with the contact at the center. We've got mobile push out here to the left, and we've got a couple of other things, right? So that should all look familiar. Up here, I want to go in and start to look at data extensions. And so data extensions, you can view those a few different ways. I'm going to show you the basic way that I've been doing it. Here's last purchase example. And you can go in and you can actually see how this structure is created. So here's my basic attributes. These are arbitrary. These are things which I created on the fly. You can put in there whatever you want. And then here's the records that I put in. And you'll notice that I've got my subscriber key over here before, which is Reid Carlberg plus Jody. And of course, here's the last purchase amount and the last purchase date. So that's how everything ties together. Make sense? Okay. So, from there, let's go kind of back over to the presentation. And we'll see what's next. There we go. Now, from a day-to-day perspective, this is something that every group of customers that I've run into on the Marketing Cloud does. These are very common things that people are used to. It's part of ongoing marketing operations. So when you get involved in projects related to the Marketing Cloud, or when you start to deploy the Marketing Cloud in your organization, you're going to end up with those two things for sure. I guarantee it, just because that's how people use it. Now, the other two things that I really want to talk about are some exciting things which I think are more advanced use cases. Not everybody does this, but a lot of our leading enterprises which are doing interesting things on the Marketing Cloud are using them. And that's this number 4 and number 5, interactions and intelligence and API. So I think I'm actually kind of cheating here, and I'm showing you 6 things that I love about the Marketing Cloud, but that's okay. So, interactions with Journey Builder. So, if you get a chance and you go to a Salesforce World Tour, you go to Dreamforce, you go to any of that, we always have a stand where you can learn how to create a journey with Journey Builder. It is worth your time. You're going to learn how to actually put these together, how to do it to send email, everything else. Doesn't take that long, and it will give you hands-on experience, and there's nothing that can replace hands-on experience with it. The whole idea with Journey Builder is that you actually come to this not broadcast message, not these first 3 rows, but you come to Matt, right? And you say, okay, what is Matt doing? And how do we kind of help him take, I'm picking on Matt because he's in the front row. So, how do you help Matt onto this next step of working with whatever your business or service or whatever the goals are that you want for them? And that's what Journey Builder really does. Journey Builders are paths of action which are started by events, and it can be an arbitrary event. They consist of different activities. So these might be emails, push notifications, text messages, something like that. They're guided by decisions. So you can see on this graph right here, we start off with an interaction plan. You'll see that there's a sign up. That's the event. And you'll see that there's this activity, which is the welcome, download the app email. And then you'll see there's this decision that happens. So this path is all guided by decisions. And then what happens is there's a goal. And there's a goal at the end that you're trying to get to. And so when marketers think about this goal, they think about that as conversion. And what they want to do is they want to say, we got Matt to sign up and download, and then he converted by actually downloading the app. And so that's a successful portion of this journey. So Journey Builder is a really powerful way to do that because it's just running all the time. It just happens. And so people come into it at different times. So sometimes Matt is starting off, sometimes then you're coming in, sometimes then somebody else is coming in, and it just keeps going, right? So the next thing that I want to talk about is predictive intelligence. So with predictive intelligence, the idea is to provide smarter messaging. So you know how I said that we were kind of going from that broadcast to much more targeted to really that one-to-one? Predictive intelligence is all about understanding the activities that are happening with a customer and giving them something which is exactly just for them. So in this case, we talk a little bit about capturing customer behavior, predicting and automating marketing decisions, and then creating those personalized experiences. But what that actually means from a practical standpoint is, let's say Peter back there is on your website, and Peter's clicking around for a new couch. He's looking at a lot of new couches. He goes into a store and buys a couch at some point. The idea then is that you can actually send him an email or some other type of messaging that says, if you bought a couch, you're going to love our rugs, right? And this has proven to be very effective. So there's a great story on here. I think Simon's distributing these slides, so I'm not going to put all the URL up that nobody will remember anyway. But Room and Board, which is a furniture store in the U.S., they've received a huge ROI on this of about 2,900%, which is incredible. The idea behind predictive intelligence is that number keeps going up because you have systems in the background which are learning all the time, and they're learning how to make better decisions and better recommendations. So what's great from my perspective about predictive intelligence, you remember the story that I put in about how I'm really keen on making sure that the SDKs are integrated with the rest of Marketing Cloud, is as of the release on Monday, we now have a method in our SDK to make integration with the predictive intelligence system easier and smarter from your mobile app. So now actions in your mobile app can start to inform the predictive intelligence engine, right? So that you're getting better messaging out to the people who you want to communicate with. So, last thing that I want to talk about is the API. I'm a developer at heart, and so the first thing that I did when I took over the product was I started to look at the API and started to get to use the API, and it's actually proven to be something which is very powerful. What I love about API is we've got these ideas about how you should be using our system, but almost always our customers have additional ideas about ways that they want to use pretty much anything that we put out, and so an API is a way to build that flexibility in. So these are just some examples of the REST methods. We actually have a REST API and a SOAP API. And so if you're a developer and you're used to kind of Sales Cloud, Service Cloud platform, you know that we have SOAP and REST there too, and you know that sometimes they're slightly different, and that's true on this one too. We don't have a lot of overlap in the functionality between the SOAP and the REST APIs. REST APIs do one thing, so for example, if you want to send a push notification, that's all REST. We don't have any SOAP methods. There's other areas where that is the opposite is true. So on email, I know there's a lot of stuff which is all SOAP-based still, because that's what customers are using. So let's take a look at how this goes. So let's see. The first thing that I want to do is I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to go back into mobile push. It'll take a second here to come up. And what I want to do is create a new message. So now this message is also going to be an outbound message. API sample. And it's still going to go to the same technical configuration. But you see that my send method is going to be different. I actually have 4 different send methods that are worth thinking about. So scheduling is what I've been demoing so far. That's where you have a particular date and time that you want your messages to go out. API trigger is what I'm going to show you. Automations is this product that we have called Automation Studio, which is just a workhorse. We have lots of customers that do it. It brings in information and data extensions, helps you customize things, sends out the right kind of message. And then interaction, which is Journey Builder. So that's more the one-to-one that we were talking about a second ago. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to say placeholder, right? And you'll notice that I don't have a send on this one. On this one, I have an activate. Activate is what makes this API available, this API message available. So I'm going to go ahead and click confirm. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to a quick demo that I have running on Heroku. Good morning, Heroku. Okay, it'll pop up here in a second. It's possible. Yeah, I didn't actually do anything other than the free account on this one, so it might have just gone to sleep on me. Yeah. Okay, well, while this is coming up in the background, I'll kind of talk you through it. The basic goal of this demo is that it goes out and it pulls up a list of all my messages, right? And then from the list of messages, you can start to do different things with them to make it easier. So one of the things that you can do is you can send it out and you can customize it on the fly. So let's say you've got some sort of back-end system that is managing those transactional business processes. And here we go. And so what you want to do then is you want to, as this transaction proceeds, you want to be able to send out a very specific message. Well, what you can do with this one is quickly customize those messages on the fly. So here's the customize and send. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put plus Jody on here. And so that's her subscriber key right there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hello, first name, your order is ready and will be delivered and is, and is shipping. Let's see. Okay. And so then we'll go ahead and click on send now. There we go. Now, if I get this right, you can then start to check status on it, so you can see the status of those messages, because remember, we have to go through, we have to do some rendering, we got to look up some stuff in a database, we got to make sure all that stuff is working. You can see where it's been created. You can see where we've got a count of 1. You can see where the message send process has started right there. And if I click on check status again, I think it's probably going to come up and say, oh, not finished yet. There we go. Now it comes up as finished. And if I pop over here back to the phone that's not giving me heck, you'll see where it comes up and it says, hello, first name, your order is ready and is shipping now. Sorry about the time zones. I've got this set up to my Chicago time zone at home, so it shows up at 4:35 in the morning. Okay, so that's the core of how all this stuff works, and really the bulk of my presentation. So what I wanted to do now is I wanted to take a second and talk about some of the things which are also out there. There's a ton about the Marketing Cloud that I completely failed to mention today. And some of that has to do with my own ignorance. I'm relatively new on the product, and it's a giant product. And part of that just has to do with time, So active audiences, fantastic way to make sure that you're identifying a like audience on Facebook to somebody to an audience that you already know is doing good things. Discover, a great way to identify targets in your subscriber base. Audience Builder, Automation Studio, Social Studio, and then of course there's a couple of other mobile products here. Group Connect is really interesting because what it does is it helps you interact with people in these modern over-the-top messaging applications. So think Messenger, WeChat, Line. Today we're live with Line in Japan on this one, and it is proving to be a very effective way of communicating with people. Does anybody use Line in here? A couple people do? Okay, Line is very much, it's a Japanese thing, right? If you're in Japan, you're in Thailand, it's different in Korea. But if you're in that kind of Southeast Asian market, you are using Line, without a doubt. Mobile Connect is a way to send out lots of SMS and MMS messages. And the interesting thing about some of these, the paradigms, especially on these last two, for the apps, I'm really doing one-way communication. We don't have sort of that interactive bidirectional component. On Group Connect and Mobile Connect, we have bidirectionality to it. So you can send out a text message and then start to create interactions based on that text message. And so it can be a really guided experience as compared to kind of a one-way prompt. So there's just a ton of stuff like that that's worth taking a look at. Now, on the resource side, we do have quite a few resources that are available to this. One of the challenges right now is that to use these, it does require a Marketing Cloud account, and we do not have a free developer edition yet, unfortunately. Sometimes I know a guy who can help with that. Not always, okay? So if you're interested, ping me. I'll have my contact information up here in a second. But there's a lot of docs up here that you can get to. So we've got a great set of help docs that are really good. AMP script is very well documented. These two SDKs right here are part of my product space that I'm working on. So the iOS SDK docs and Android SDK docs. We've been iterating on those constantly for the last 10 months. I still have a lot of stuff I want to do, but you eat a pizza one bite at a time. Kevin Poorman. Does everybody know Kevin? You should all know Kevin. Okay, so Kevin was an MVP, and then he came to work for me. And so if you work for Salesforce, you're not an MVP anymore. But he is one of the best technologists I have ever met in my entire life. And so he did this presentation at Dreamforce 15 talking about how to actually implement this. And so that's up on SlideShare, and I think we've got a YouTube component for that too, so you can watch that one. And then the little API example app that I showed you just a second ago. That code's actually up on GitHub if you're interested in seeing that stuff in action. Okay. I think that's about it. If you do have questions where you want to talk about any of this stuff, this is my contact information. I am generally available and happy to help if I can. Would love to make sure that you guys fill out your survey for London's Calling. If you've never put on a conference before, I can tell you from personal experience, these surveys are gold. These are gold, right? So anything that you can do to complete this about sessions and everything else that they want to do, it's going to be great for the organizers and help them do a better job next time. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions that you want to talk through? Yeah. This is how does this work with Salesforce Core? So Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, platform and all that, and how do you get the two to interact? Well, so there's multiple answers, just like with everything in technology. So one thing is we do have something called a Salesforce connector that goes back and forth, that'll replicate data back and forth so that you can do things with your Salesforce data in the Marketing Cloud, and so that you can see Marketing Cloud activities in your Sales Cloud. So that does exist. Now, the other thing that you can do, because we have an API, is you can key off triggered events that happen in Salesforce to do interesting things on the Marketing Cloud. So say, for example, you have an email address like the Reid.Carlberg plus Jody. You have her email address. She's got a case open, and you want to send her a push notification that that case is now closed and what happened to it. You can very easily create that in some kind of a trigger that comes over and just sends it right out. Right? So you've got multiple options for it. It is something which we're very conscious of, that when we look at this, we want the end-to-end experience of Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Platform, Marketing Cloud. We want that to be seamless and transparent, and so that's the journey that we're on today. That's kind of in the middle right now. We have that ability to connect, and then in a year, it's just going to keep getting better. Yeah. Other questions? Matt, question. So the question is this just for retail where you're trying to have a shopping experience in your mobile device? We do have a fair number of people who are retailers who are using our app in some kind of way, shape, or form, and they want to have that experience. So it's a great use case. We also have people who are like in the quick-serve restaurant business. Quick-serve restaurants a lot of times want to communicate with their customers. It might be about, hey, here's a special. It might be, hey, here's a coupon. It might be, hey, your order's ready. That's a very common thing. And then the in-flight business process that I talk about here at the end, that transactional stuff, we have a lot of financial institutions that are starting to do interesting things with us in terms of communicating with their mobile app. One of the real interesting changes that's happened in the last 12 to 18 months is that push notifications started off as a developer and engineering concern. And so when you had somebody build a mobile app, it was primarily the developer and the engineering team that was trying to figure out, okay, what are the notifications? How do we get those out there? How do we manage them? In the last 12 to 18 months, that has transformed entirely into a marketer job. And the marketers want to have control over that end-to-end customer experience, including the app. And so what we're starting to see is many more operational use cases, things that are coming in on that transactional front, because that's where people feel like that customer experience really is. Yeah. Profit space. How are not-for-profits using this? I don't have a great story off the top of my head about a not-for-profit that's using this. I have one which is based in Indianapolis, who I've helped deploy this with, and what they're doing is they're using it to talk about volunteer opportunities. So a new volunteer opportunity comes up, it matches a preference that you've set. You want these kind of volunteer opportunities. They will message people about that to drive them into the app to learn more about it. That's the biggest one that I know off the top of my head. So conversations with donors is really interesting. So at Salesforce, we have the Salesforce Foundation, and one of the things that happens with the Salesforce Foundation is when I make a donation to an organization and I request a matching grant, I get these stream of updates that come through email that say, okay, we've verified that you donated, we've pledged, our matching portion. Okay, we've distributed our matching portion. I think that kind of thing is a great use case. It's a great transactional opportunity. So do you have an app that your customers use as part of the nonprofit? Okay. Okay. Of having a targeted conversation, thank you. The notion of having a targeted conversation about a fundraising opportunity is also a great use case for this. The core reason to use a push notification is really to drive people back into your app. An app provides a really rich, engaging experience for your users, and what you want to do is you want to make sure that somebody who downloaded it on day 7 is still using it, on day 30 is still using it, on day 120 is still using it. And so the app should be sort of this gateway into your organization, and so if you have this way of starting to interact with people where maybe there's a specific fundraising opportunity, like it's kind of targeted, for example, you could actually send out messages saying, hey, you want to know about fundraising opportunities for classrooms? Here's one, right? Did you have a question? Yeah. All of this is a great question. So the question is, how do you do general subscriber management using this? Well, there's multiple answers to that. I've seen some of our leading edge customers that they put a contact preference center right in their app. And so that helps them manage push notification preferences. They can manage their text notification preferences, and then they can also manage email preferences. In our system, in my system with the SDKs, we don't have that built in today. What we have built in today is the push notifications. So you opt in, you opt out. We make sure that is communicated up to the Marketing Cloud so that the marketer has a good view into who's opted into it. But there's no particular reason you can't develop the other stuff. It's out there. There's APIs for it, and we do see people who do it. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks, everybody who jumped in today. Really appreciate your time. If you have any other questions, I'll be up here for a few minutes. Thanks a lot.